Hi, everybody. Welcome to another one of what we know is going to be an informative and exciting AFSC Zoom. We've been trying to do this every other week for a good deal of the pandemic, and it's turned out to be a very, very positive thing. We are able to have audiences from all over the country, all over the world, and speakers also. Our desire is to, since we can't travel, to bring Israel to you. I must say, though, that AFSC has traveled. We were in Israel in October, and we are going again from May 2nd to May 9th. It is a very exciting itinerary. I hope many of you inquire about it, judy@afsc.org, and are interested in coming along with us. So at this moment, personally, I am so saddened by the news coming out of Russia and Ukraine. It's very difficult to figure out what's driving that, and maybe someday we'll know. I'm also very saddened right now. I just got news today of homes in Benjamin, in Kochav HaShachar, that were destroyed, about 10 homes. All around them are Arab homes, which were not touched, but these Jewish homes were destroyed by the Jewish government in the Knesset, and I'm finding that really astonishing. Also, there was a man in Beersheba walking back and forth with a knife. Finally, 3 women came along, and he stabbed all 3 of them, and they are all in not great condition in the hospital. So our prayers go out for all of those people. And I know you're all with me on that.
Of course.
Today, we have, I don't want to take too much time. So today we have 2 representatives of a group called Im Tirtzu. And I think all of you, most of you are familiar with Im Tirtzu. I just send, so we have Doug Altabef, who's the CEO, and Shai Rosengarten, who's the National Activist Coordinator. I'm going to let you tell them about Im Tirtzu, but let me just tell you a little bit about Doug Altabef. Doug is just a little. Doug is a native New Yorker. He made Aliyah in 2009 with his wife and their youngest child, who is going into Bezalel Academy very soon. He holds an AB from Columbia and a JD from Harvard Law School. After retiring from professional money management in New York in 2013, Doug has devoted himself to Israel advocacy. He is also on the board of the Israel Independence Fund, that I am blessed to be on as well. He writes extensively in the Jerusalem Post. I hope you've caught his op-eds and other English language media. Hopefully things will be translated into other languages because his writing is truly excellent. That is my introduction of Doug, and I think Doug would like to introduce our other guest, Shai Rosengarten. So take it away, Doug.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Before I spend a minute on Im Tirtzu, I want to spend a half a minute on an organization that we all know and really respect, and that is AFSC. I want to tell you that we here in Israel have a profound regard and respect for AFSC, for being courageous, for being unambiguous, unambivalent. I've had the great pleasure to interact with AFSC groups on trips into places that most American Jews have certainly not even heard of, and if they have heard of them, they would never go there. So it's like you get tremendous credit for bravery, for putting yourselves where your mouths are, so to speak. And I would like to say that I think a lot of that is a function of the legacy of a remarkable, remarkable woman who I miss almost every day, and that, of course, is Helen Friedman. Happily, Zichrona Levracha, happily, in Helen's case, the apple did not fall far from the tree, and Judy has been able to pick up where she left off without a beat. But it's you guys are doing very important work, and we really are. We at Im Tirtzu are thrilled to have the relationship with AFSC. At this point, I'm going to ask Shai, before I introduce him, if you can put up, we can start the screen sharing.
Okay, well.
And what I'd like to do is remind you a little bit about Im Tirtzu. Im Tirtzu has, over the years, grown to become the largest grassroots Zionist organization in Israel. And we are the largest in terms of the people that we interact with. And I would venture to say that we are the largest in terms of the impact, the reach, the influence that we have had on our society. We are, in many respects, like an AFSC. We are fearless. We are unambivalent. We are unambiguous. We call it like it is. We say it like it is. And that has allowed us, enabled us to become what I would say is the voice and the mirror of Middle Israel. We are very, very well known in our society here, excuse me, mostly because we reflect the values and the priorities of the overwhelming majority of the citizens of Israel. And so there is a lot of overlap, and we define our mission in two respects. And so when Judy said, I asked her, what would you like us to speak about? She said, well, the news is so bad all the time. What about talking about good things? What about talking about positive things? I said, well, that's perfect. That's fine, because Shai, if you put up the next slide, please. The two-pronged mission of Im Tirtzu is Oseh Tov V'Sur Merah, do good and distance and stay away from bad. The staying away from bad is the issues of confronting anti-Zionism, confronting BDS within Israel. Yes, there is BDS within Israel, as surreal as that might sound. Foreign funding of anti-Zionist organizations, governmental policies like that Judy just talked about that are completely at variance with what should be Zionist values. All of that is a very important part of our mission, but the flip side of our mission is about building and nurturing and educating to make sure that our citizens are resolute in their understanding of the justness and the humaneness and the decency that is Israel and that is Zionism. Shai, can you advance to the next slide, or is that doable? Well, you may have to live with this quote for the rest of the evening. I don't know, but
On the side.
You see the next slide, or there's a
no, we don't. No, not yet.
Okay, this is the next. I'll try again.
That's it. There you go.
You see
Okay,
it?
so
Okay.
that's the one. So what this just is intended to give you a little bit of a taste of, and I'm not going to go through each one, is the vast spectrum of activities that we are involved with. Im Tirtzu was started on campuses. We were initially a campus-based organization, and we have spread out into the Knesset, we have spread out into communities. Our roots are still very much on campuses. Shai Rosengarten, who is here with me today, is our national coordinator of all of our branches. We're upwards of 20 branches, basically on every university campus in Israel and most of the large colleges in Israel. And but we do a tremendous spectrum of different activities, as I say, both intended to educate and to nurture Zionism. So one of the challenges that we've had, of course, is being campus-based. There hasn't been much of campus life the last 2 years because of COVID. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is how necessity has provided the opportunity for innovation, for new initiatives that have enabled us, in many respects, to make lemonade out of lemons, as they say, and take the difficulty of COVID times and to find in those difficulties some very exciting and new initiatives. And we're going to talk about several of them today. And Shai is going to really lead the way on this. The first one that we're going to talk about has to do with soldiers. We have a very, very close relationship with our soldiers. Most Israelis, we have a close relationship with soldiers. Ours is a citizen army. We really became Israelis when our kids went into the army and did their service. That really is something that demarks, that puts an imprimatur on your Aliyah. So our involvement, and Shai, if you could advance to the next slide, please, with soldiers takes two forms. One is that we feel the obligation, and this may sound strange, to protect our soldiers. We are actually in the field protecting our soldiers from what? From being harassed. For whatever reason, the protocol of the IDF is that soldiers must endure face-to-face, and when I say face-to-face, it could be 3 centimeters away, contact, harassment from people who would be yelling at them, who would be accusing them of different things. And that has, to our way of thinking, is just simply unacceptable. So our response, Shai, are you able to move the slide again?
Yeah, you want the video?
No, the next slide, the next PowerPoint.
This?
Not yet. So our response to this has been to, as the slide says, to oppose, they're usually European anarchists who come to film and harass soldiers. What are they doing? They're trying to get a reaction from a soldier so they can upload it and say, look at this, here they are, these disgusting IDF soldiers. They're committing war crimes, they're committing crimes against humanity. And it's a cheap shot. So we came up with the very interesting idea of what we call filming the filmers. So Shai, let's go to the video on that, okay? We'll give you a sense of some of what we do with that. It's not on the screen yet. Shai, we're not seeing it.
You can see it?
No. Okay, now we see it. Okay.
This is strange. I'm sorry. I tried to expand the presentation, but we will see it now.
Okay, now we'll see it. Here we go.
אוקיי.
אנחנו כרגע נצלם את הפרצופים שלהם. תראו את הטלפונים שלופים כולם כלפי החיילים פה באמצע מחסום ביטחוני שמנסים לאבטח. All of your faces will go to the authorities, I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. The language of it, I will not. אתם לא מפה, אתם לא תלכו לחיילים. You don't talk with If you will try to harass the soldiers, I will protect them, okay? עכשיו כולכם יכולים לראות מה קורה, תראו את המצלמות שלוחות, כולם פה מצלמים, מגיעים פה לחיילים,
Okay, Shai, give us a sense of what we were just watching and who were those people that were filming our soldiers?
Okay, first of all, thank you, Doug. And I'm sorry for my English, but I'll do my best. So this project is all about filming the filmers, like its name. It's designed to protect IDF soldiers from anti-Zionist organizations, like you saw in the video. They are trying to harass the soldiers when they are in the field, on the ground, doing their activities. Those people coming from organizations with cameras, and they are starting to film the soldiers in front of their faces. You can saw it on the video. They're just coming in front of one soldiers or two, and then trying to threaten them and to film them and to make them their work very hard. They interfere in their activities, and of course they are afterward spreading lies, nasty lies about Israel, about the IDF. And what we are actually doing in this project is to find those people, and we are find their organizations, and we are just starting to film them like they filming the soldiers. We broadcasted live on Facebook, and we reveal their real work and their purpose here. Some of them are disguised as peacekeepers or peace activists. This is nonsense. You see those people only spread the lies in websites, in the social media, and we actually managed to keep them away for months. One organization called the EAPPI that is coming from Europe, we managed to keep him out of Israel for I think 1 year and a half in 2018, and he just arrived in the weeks in the weeks that has passed. And the soldiers are of course very grateful for this activity. They see our work. They know that they can't deal with those filmers alone. They have a lot of work. They have a lot of activity. They can't just get busy with all of those nuts. And we are doing this job for them, and they are very happy and they are very thankful for us, for what we are doing.
The most of these soldiers, I'm sorry, the filmers are coming from Europe. Are there
Yeah.
also Israelis who do this?
Well, unfortunately, many of them are actually Israelis. Many of those harassers. They are belong to anti-Zionist organizations, like I mentioned earlier, and they are getting their fund from governments in Europe, and they want to harm Israelis and their ability to defend themselves, like I just said. You see, the majority of the Israelis love the IDF, love our soldiers, but there's some a minority, a very vocal minority that is trying to force the government and the IDF, I don't know, their progressive ideas, and this is very painful for us as Israelis to see citizens like us doing such a things. And of course, in addition to those Israelis, there is a lot of European citizens that coming to Israel through tourist visas, and they are actually go to areas of activities of soldiers and just start to harass them. But of course, we're making their lives very difficult.
Right.
This is our job.
Right. So let's switch gears in terms of our soldiers. And you talked about the gratitude of soldiers for what we're doing. One of the things that we have been doing very regularly is honoring our soldiers. We visit them at checkpoints, we visit them at remote bases, we visit them in sensitive places, and we give them in effect a hug. We give them treats, we give them snacks, we provide them with very positive feedback. And Shai, I know you've been very, very actively involved in this initiative. Give us a little bit of a sense of how that's received by the soldiers and what it means to them.
Yes, of course. Like I said earlier, soldiers loves us very much. We love them too. All of the time when they see us, they are shouting for us. We love you, Im Tirtzu. Keep it up. We see you on the social media, and we are trying to make their life easier, not only by fighting the harassers, but to give them treats and snacks and cold drinks in the hot summer days. This is actually activity that is solely supposed to make the soldiers happy. People do not understand how difficult it is to be an Israeli soldier. On one hand, you risk your life for this country, for all of the citizens. You're serving under harsh conditions, life-threatening conditions. But on the other hand, like you saw, there's a very vocal minority that bother them, and we just want them to know how much the people of Israel love them, love the soldiers, love the IDF. We're trying to give them the sweets and the snacks in the name of the Israeli public. And of course, the importance of this activity is not coming from the chocolate bars or the Diet Coca-Cola or other things that we are delivering, but the importance is coming from the fact that the soldiers can see that thousands and thousands of Israelis are thinking about them and trying to make them happy. and I invite you to think about you if you were Israeli soldiers serving on the border, how you've enjoyed to get some treats and snacks out of nowhere in the field, and to know that so much Israelis are thinking about you and sending to you those things, those packages.
Right, right. It's very important, and it's an initiative that we will continue to do. It's become a core part of our activities. Let's move on to another area where we are doing something to strengthen convictions and ties. And this is really...
Doug, sorry, we have another video about the treats for the fighters. Do you want to show them, or?
I'm just concerned about time.
Okay.
So I think we'll just move ahead.
Okay.
But you know, one of the things that we have been doing and is planting trees. Now, this is not your father's or grandfather's JNF tree planting. Tree planting, of course, has a very, very hallowed history in Israel. Israel was one of 2 countries in the world that had more trees at the end of the 20th century than it did at the beginning of the 20th century. And that, of course, was a function of all the pushkas that we remember as kids and getting certificates for $18 and planting a tree. But the tree planting that we are doing now is intended to create facts on the ground. It is a strategic activity. It is a way of making sure that land is not being seized in Judea and Samaria. It is a way of putting down a marker for what is Jewish owned and Jewish controlled. Shai, give us more of a sense of, what we're doing with that.
Okay, well, like you said, it is important to understand that planting trees in the land of Israel, it's not only for planting for fun. This is a way. This is a way to show the responsibility that we have, the ownership of the land in Israel. And this is an activity that can almost be compared to building a new neighborhood in our country. Planting trees means to maintaining our ownership and preventing illegal takeover in the land of Israel, where we're suffering from a severe problem of land takeover by Arabs and Bedouins. In the Negev, in the Galil, in the Jordan Valley. So once we are planting the trees, we are essentially marking the Israeli ownership, and those are actually state lands, and this is how we're marking them, and this is why we are doing it. This is a symbol of Zionism for us, and today the importance of this action is very great. So we are trying to hold the planting at every opportunity that we have. We are doing it especially in Tu B'Shvat, but also whenever we can. We are doing it in collaborations with the schools, with the local residents, with other Zionist organizations, and we are understanding that this is an action that is both Zionist but also educational for our activists and for schools and for other for the residents. We are trying to symbolize the Zionism by this action. And we think that it means a lot, not only for us, but also for all of the residents in which we are in the places when we are doing this activity.
Right. You know, it's interesting. This is a Shemitah year, and yet we have been told by several rabbis it's okay to do this because this is a version of pikuach nefesh. This is a version of saving life, nurturing life, and we will probably intensify after the Shemitah, but we think it's important not to stop doing it even during the Shemitah year. Let's move on to another form of volunteer work, and this is some of this seems like it's old-fashioned stuff, which speaks to me. That you see here, we talk about visiting nursing homes. Branches from different campuses will visit and adopt Holocaust survivors and go to hospitals and visit. But there is one thing here that is also really quite important on a what I'd call a strategic level, and that is our assisting of farmers. Farmers, especially in a time of COVID, have not had the ability to tap the Thai workers that were here. In some cases, some of the Palestinian workers, and so many young Israelis are trying to fill the gap because farming here is definitely a strategic industry. It is a highly strategic initiative. It isn't just a business. And so, Shai, give us a little bit of sense of what we're doing to help our farmers.
Okay, like you said, I totally agree that the farmers and the agricultural activity is like planting trees. This is a strategic thing, and this is also things that are helping us to mark the ownership that we have on the land of Israel. And it is also important to notice that our organization is an Israeli organization that operates within the Israeli population, and we receive the trust from the Israeli public. And in order to maintain this trust and to maintain our unique relationship with the public, with the society, and with the farmers, we must contribute and assist the public, the soldiers, the farmers, and other publics that we have here. And as part of this, we volunteer with the veteran population, with the Holocaust survivors, and with farmers. In this recent period, when the corona has caused this so much trouble, and it caused them to lose a lot of workers aboard, we try to fill the gap, like you said. We're coming from all over the country, groups of students, and we are just coming for hours or days in a farmland all over the country, in the Galil, in the Negev, Yehuda and Shomron, and we're just working them. We are working. We are doing this activity. We are helping them to do their job. You can see in this slide some examples. You can see one pictures with oranges that we collected from the trees, and it means a lot for the farmers. They are very grateful for this activity. They are talking with us, and they are asking from us to come a lot and to try to help them in some occasions when they must do this work. And like we said, we also doing a lot of other works, like delivering donuts in Hanukkah and mishlochei manot in Purim to hospitals. And we are doing it not only for the society, but because we understand that we are part of this society, we are part of the population, the Israeli population, and this is even educational activity for our activists, the students that working with us.
Right. Your point is very well taken about that, because the issue of assisting farmers is also really assisting the volunteers, in the sense that it's allowing them to reconnect with working the land, with being involved in the land, which is certainly the preeminent, Zionist activity. And we're living in increasingly urbanized country. And so it's very important for our students to be able to reconnect and not lose a connection with the land. The last area I want to focus on has to do with our campus work, which, as I said earlier, Im Tirtzu started as a campus-based organization, and pre-COVID, I would say that in any given year, somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 people would be involved in one or another of our activities, most of that happening on various campuses throughout the country. Campus life went into hiatus, as they say, with COVID. And so we did a couple of different things. One is pre-COVID, we had an initiative called the Seminars for Zionist Thought. The seminars were lectures given by A-list speakers from academia, government, culture, media, free speeches. We did them on 5 of the major university campuses in the country. Obviously, that was, forestalled. But we decided, again, to see this as an opportunity, and we created something that we call the Studio for Zionist Thought, which is basically a very bare bones studio where we can interview people, we can do small panel discussions, and all of this gets put out onto social media, it gets put out onto our website. So whereas a lecture might have attracted 150, 200 people to it, so that over the course of an academic year, maybe 30, 40,000 people were attending lectures. Now with the Studio for Zionist Thought, it's upwards of 1 million people have watched various presentations. As campus activity has started to resume, Shai came up with a brilliant idea of reinvigorating interest on the branch level, because many of our activists had graduated. And so we're looking for the new crop. And tell us, Shai, about what that bullet point there that says Zionism at the bar. What is that involved with?
Okay, I'll begin with what you said about the corona. I'm sure you're familiar with the challenges of this plague, the corona, and but probably the biggest challenge for us is the social distance and the isolation. Where movement of students, young people, a large part of the motivation is coming from the desire to meet together, to be together with people, and to expose to new experiences. And this is something that was very difficult to do during the corona period. Many students did not came to campuses in many months, which weakened the ties between the activists and of course the movement. So like Doug said, to fill the gap, we need to think out of the box, and we try to do some new things. There were two main ways to deal with these challenges. The first way is, of course, like we are doing now, and like the rest of the world, to move to activities and discussions that can be held through Zoom, through applications, with the social media, like the studio that we are broadcasting on Facebook. It was good, but it's not really gave us a certain. It gave us a certain answer, but it wasn't enough. This is not the only way in which we wanted to proceed. So our activists and we both wanted to carry out activities in the field, and therefore we insisted on doing everything that we can in the current situation to do activities on the ground in the field. We started to hold outdoor activities, like we mentioned earlier, in farms, and to plant trees and do anything that we can, as long as this is not happening in closed areas. And in addition, when we saw that the campuses remained closed, but on the other hand, businesses and bars were open to a certain level, we started a new initiative. Like Doug said, lectures on a bar. We brought fascinating lecturers, doctors and professors and historians to talk with our activists about Zionism, about history and law. And we did it in bars around the country. We invited our students to meet there, to hear the lectures, and start to reconnect with each other. In fact, this idea was so successful that we decided to continue implanting it even when the campuses return to full activity. And we're doing it right now in addition to the lectures that we hold inside the campuses. And all in all, it was a very tough period. We are hoping that the corona will not proceed and do not and we will not be forced to do Zoom conferences for a lot of time. But this is how we managed to get through it.
Last thing that I would ask you to comment on, Shai, and then we can take some questions, is the idea that we have branched out of just campus activity or campus-based activity and more into community-based activity, that we now have civilian branches, which are branches of people like the folks on this call who want to get involved with what we're doing, who want to be active in volunteering their efforts and sharing their experience. We've also tried to identify groups where there might be that have traditionally not been catered to, and I'm specifically referring to a very successful initiative that we've done for French speakers. The French Olim are very much in sync with what we are doing, and we decided to create a branch, so to speak, that allows French speakers to be doing Im Tirtzu related activities in French. Maybe, Shai, you can spend a minute on those two initiatives.
Yeah, okay, so like I said earlier, the Corona period forced us to think outside the box. and we recently, in the recent month, extended our work with the citizen population who are not student. We did not. We've not done it earlier. We recently launched a number of civic branches in cities like Haifa, Hadera, Kfar Saba, Rehovot, and more. And we take advantage of the platform I mentioned earlier, like lectures on bars and businesses, and volunteer work with farmers, to connect those citizens. And what we are trying to do is to connect those Zionist citizens together, so we have more activists for our community, for our organization. And like you said, Doug, we recently also started to work with the French Aliyah, the French population in Israel. This is a very important work. We think that many Jewish people are trying to come inside Israel, to arrive here, especially now in all of this mess, in the war in Ukraine. There is a lot of fear in Europe, and we think that we thought that it will be smart to connect with these aliyot, this population, those French people, in the very first step they are making here in Israel. We opened a WhatsApp group, and we started to make activities especially for them, with French-speaking activists that can communicate with them, and it is very convenient for the French Aliyah to speak with French Jews that arrived to Israel a few years ago, and it is actually a very successful idea. And I want to mention also that I've also came a lot to pre-military schools and pre-military yeshivas. This is a whole idea of try to reach a new populations, new areas. It is part of this, and I want also to mention that all of this work that I am talking about carried out with the collaboration of all of our great members of the movement, like Yehuda Sharabani and Amit Leon and Yona Shai. There's a lot of hard workers in Im Tirtzu that doing this great job. It's not only me. There are a lot of great people in Im Tirtzu that they're doing all of this work.
Yes, for sure. And you heard it here first. I think it's just a question of time before we set up a branch for Ukrainian Jews who have just come here, just as we've also worked with Ethiopian Jews in different cities. This is a matter of taking Zionism to the people and speaking their language, so to speak. And it's very exciting. And I will tell you, as the resident old guy, I derive tremendous confidence and satisfaction and inspiration from the many young people that Im Tirtzu is made up of. These are people who have a sense of great love of country, a sense of mission, an understanding of the importance of protecting Israel, how special Israel it is, and I will tell you that our future here is very bright, because of people like that. Now, normally when I give a talk about Im Tirtzu, I tell you what Im Tirtzu means. And I was remiss in doing that. Im Tirtzu, so let me tell you that Im Tirtzu comes from Theodore Herzl's famous adage, Im Tirtzu Zulo Agada. If you will it, Im Tirtzu, it is not a dream. And of course, what Herzl was referring to was the idea of willing a Jewish state. And the reason why we thought it was appropriate to take those words and make that our name is that it is a mindset that one must continue to will the Jewish state. Even though we exist, we will not exist if we do not keep willing it, meaning we do not keep protecting it, we do not keep nurturing it, we do not keep building it, defending it. And that is why the work of Shai and his partners, his teammates, is so incredibly important. One of the things that I'm very, very proud of about Im Tirtzu is that we have tapped into the love of our people, and we see that more and more regular Israelis want to support us. This is a relatively new phenomenon in Israel. You know, we were a socialist government for many years, and the thought was, well, you know, I don't get involved with that. That's the government's deal to support organizations. And of course, we don't get any government funding. So we are dependent on the largesse and the love of our supporters, whether they are in the United States, Great Britain, France, and especially in Israel itself. So I would just end by asking if any of you are so inclined to join with us, to support Israel through the vital efforts of Im Tirtzu. You can do so very easily by visiting our website, which you see on the screen here, imti.org.il/en. So you can do this in English. You can get a US tax deductible donation. And whatever it is that you can do, it will be wildly appreciated. At this point, I think if there are any questions, or Judy, if you would like to, on behalf of the audience, ask us some things, we're happy to take a couple.
Thank you for this amazingly comprehensive introduction to your organization. For many of us, it's not an introduction, but a review of what it is you do, and it's just so impressive. We are very close to a minute. One of the things I'd like to know is, and I guess you can find this out on the website, how large a staff does all this work?
Right. We are the classic pyramid. We're a small staff, although we've grown our staff because we've grown our activities. We have a legal division now. We have an Arab research desk now. We have people who are taking full-time responsibility for the Soldiers Initiative. So we're probably about 20 people in our office. But as I said, in normative times, we have dozens and dozens of campus activists who are coordinating activities, and hundreds and thousands of regular people who are participating in those activities.
Well, that is really, really good news. So I'm glad we got some good news finally. Jeff Dalby, who we all know and love, asked a question. Are there any Im Tirtzu initiatives to raise Zionist consciousness among students who have unfortunately identified with anti-Zionist organizations?
So we have done debates with organizations like Peace Now, where we will present our point of view. We often encounter on the ground in Hebron, for example. It's not uncommon that we encounter breaking the silence, and we have ad hoc debates with them. Unfortunately, we live increasingly in what I would call a siloed world, that people are speaking to the converted. It is important, Jeff's point is well taken. It is important to reach across the aisles, so to speak, to talk in a way that people who are either on the fence or willing to listen to another point of view will hear another point of view. Having a very large presence on social media is intended to provide some of that. Shai, is there anything you would point to in terms of your efforts that would address this idea of reaching out to people who are either not that interested in what we're doing or opposed to what we're doing?
Well, I think that the most that we can do is to invite all of the Israeli society and all of the Israeli public and all of the students to come to our activities, to our lectures that we have on bars, on campuses. We try to reach everyone, and we try to talk with everyone, with every student. We are doing our lectures on our social media, on campuses, on bars. We invite everyone, no matter what his or her opinion is, and this is the most that we can do.
Right.
And I think that it can be successful for a certain level, and after it, this is the choice of the student
Right.
or the resident to do whatever they like.
Right. I'll give you one example. We've done a lot of tours to Hebron from university campuses, and many of the people who go on these tours have never been to Hebron. So this is first impression, and many of them have told us, I'm glad I came because you clarified things for me. Being here was very important in terms of seeing the reality of what's going on instead of just having a preconceived notion of it. So there are things that can be done, and Shai's point is very well taken, that at the end of the day, it's a Shulchan Aruch. You put out a set table for people and say, this is what's going on, and you decide if that resonates with you or not.
Okay. My star volunteer, who comes on every single Zoom meeting that we do, I think would like to pick a question from the many, many, many that we have and ask.
Thanks, Judy. Thank you guys for doing what you do. I'm always greatly enamored that somebody is hugging those soldiers for us, because they're the ones that are keeping us safe too. So I have a few questions, and they relate sort of to Hasbara. I'm just scrolling down and it's not working very well. Judy, where is it?
Well, there was a question about,
She said she's watching False Flag, and that it's very much to the left. Everything here, she says she's watching the TV series called False Flag. The entertainment industry pretty much uniformly is left wing. She asked, do you have communications with the creative talents in that industry? I'd like to broaden that and say, we have a big problem in academia because the professors are very left-leaning, and their perspective has horribly influenced, I know for sure, American students. I'm assuming you have the same problem there. So how are you addressing these things, if at all?
This is a follow-up Zoom meeting that we should be having in terms of the corrosive impact of BDS within Israel on BDS globally. And there's a lot to talk about, but the short answer is that the head of the snake of BDS globally is actually in Israel, for the very simple reason that when you hear condemnation of Israel from an Israeli, it carries greater credibility. It has like an imprimatur of reality than it might not have coming from someone else. And that is why when Israeli academics or Israeli anti-Zionist organizations show up at the European Parliament or at the UN or at the EU and proceed to spread lies and calumnies and libel about Israel, it is particularly toxic. It's well known in Israel that if you're an academic and your career is flagging, you go abroad and you start bashing Israel, and suddenly you're being invited to be on panels and give lectures, and it's a great way to revive your career. I mean, it sounds very cynical, but it is cynical. So this is a very important reality. We have an initiative called Know Your Professor. Know Your Professor is like the old-time college course guides that many American universities had. You know, if you're thinking of taking Professor Smith's class, just know in advance he's as boring as, you know, as dishwater. But this is about, if you're thinking of taking Professor Cohn's class, just know that he has signed petitions calling for the sanctioning of his own institution by various European bodies. So you may be subject to certain harassment in the classroom. So just be aware of it. This has become a wildly sought after, very followed website. And there are now over 100, sad to say, professors on it. And it's viewed hundreds of thousands of times by Israeli students and by others. So we're very well aware of this. And it is, you know, the good guys, we don't have the kind of resources that European governments have, nor the New Israel Fund has, or Soros initiatives have. But what we have is a lot of very smart people who are very dedicated to making sure our citizens are well armed in this regard.
And with that, I'm going to say, Baruch Hashem, that there is an Im Tirtzu. We thank you so much. And we want a guarantee from you that you will come back and talk to us about BDS in Israel, being the head of BDS in the rest of the world. So we're going to stop the recording at this point.